Hello everyone. My name's Paul Stevens, and welcome to this short-term rentals webinar on New Year, New Solutions: The Rise of the Rentalpreneur, sponsored by Price Labs and our first webinar of 2023. I'm the editor of shorttermrentals.com and host for today's session. And now we've just got a short video from our webinar series sponsors, Price Labs. Now, why did we decide to host a webinar on this particular topic of rentalpreneurship? Now, this video will tell you a little bit about why.
The shorties are back for 2023, bigger and better than ever before. It was great to celebrate with you all at Skyline London in 2022. And for 2023, we're making it even easier for global STR professionals to enter or nominate others. There are 20 categories, including a new edition, the Rentalpreneur Award. Submit your no-cost entries now in as many categories as you wish by Monday, the 6th of March. And now for something truly out of this world. We're delighted to announce that the shorties will take place at the Orbit in London's Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. Mark your calendars for the 2023 shorties on Wednesday, the 26th of April.
So yes, we're absolutely delighted to say that the shorties are back. Shorties Awards are back for 2023, but we have a new category, a new individual rentalpreneur category. So lots of you tuning in will hopefully want to sign up for this particular award this year. We have 20 award categories this year. You can enter as many as you wish for free by Monday, the 6th of March. And as we said on the video, the awards are taking place in London on Wednesday, the 26th of April. You can enter at our dedicated awards platform, which will be in the chat very shortly. So in our last webinar of 2022, we covered our 2023 predictions for the short-term rental industry. Some of them you can see on your screen now, and the link to the recording of that session is also in the chat for you. In terms of webinar guidelines for today, please keep your sound on mute and your camera off if you're not a speaker. All of the details will be posted in the chat by my colleagues Danny and Rachel, and please do post any questions you have there throughout today's webinar, and we'll try and get through as many of those as possible. We'll have a discussion lasting roughly around 45 minutes before we move on to an audience Q&A. And I know we've had a lot of demand for this session as well today, so we expect to get a lot of questions throughout. Finally, a recording will be sent round to everyone after today's session. So let's introduce our amazing speaker lineup for today, and we're going to kick off, please, with Mark.
Hello, everybody. It's good to see so many names that I recognise in the audience, and looking forward to seeing you all at the shorties in April. It's particularly looking forward to going down that slide, that tunnel, a couple of beers. So my name is Mark Simpson. I'm the founder of Boostly. I'm pretty much the other British guy on this panel. I'm the British guy that you're going to be able to understand. Obviously, Ryan is there next to me, and when Paul came to me a couple of weeks ago and said, we're going to put on this webinar. We want to get we've got Stacey on board, we've got the fabulous Philip on board. Can you recommend somebody else from Britain that you can recommend, like who could be part of his panel? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I've got somebody amazing. Unfortunately, he's not available, but Ryan's obviously here as well. So managed to get Ryan on board, which is good. So thanks for him for being part of this. But yeah, excited to be part of it. Looking forward to digging into rentalpreneurs. And yeah, thank you very much for the invite. And yeah, looking forward to getting stuck in.
Thanks, Mark. Ryan, do you want to respond to that and introduce yourself next?
Yeah, Ryan, Luke, CEO of Futurestay. Mark, I think, has just got a bit of jealousy going on because Newcastle are obviously kicking Liverpool's ass at the minute, but we'll leave that one to one side. But yeah, we obviously got a large UK portfolio, and we're building very nicely over here in Dubai as well, which is where I'm based now. So looking forward to obviously giving you guys a glimpse of what I've done over the last few years and answering any questions as well.
I think it took 5 minutes there to get a bit of football banter in already. So getting it in early doors. Thank you, Ryan. Next up, we have Stacey.
Hey, everybody. My name is Stacey St. John, and it is such a pleasure for me to be here with not only all of you, but, you know, to you, Paul and Mark, thanks for including me. And Mark, thanks for maybe beating up Ryan instead of me. So super excited to be with you all. You know, entrepreneurship is certainly something that I love talking about, and I'm excited that this topic is being brought up. So really excited to dig in.
Delighted to have you here, Stacey. Thank you very much. And last but by no means least, we have Phil.
Everyone, nice to see all of you. Phil Kennard here, founder of Futurestay. I'm incredibly excited. I don't want to say I'm more excited than anyone else, but as Paul knows, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And I think we'll probably get into some of the history around that later on. But what makes me excited about today specifically is we have a panel here of leaders from the short-term rental space focused on the biggest, the fastest growing segment of short-term rentals that gets the least attention, which is the rentalpreneur. I'm the founder of Futurestay. Futurestay is a technology platform that helps rentalpreneurs on their journey from when they start thinking about renting out their first property, maybe before they even acquire it, to being successful. We help them with distribution, channel management, direct bookings, et cetera. But most importantly, we're just here to make their goals more attainable. So excited to see more leaders here in one place, all focused on the same thing.
Thank you very much, Phil, and thank you to all of our panelists for today. So let's add a little bit of context to today's discussion. Last year, we reported on a direct booking milestone for Mark's Boostly, and we'll be hearing a little bit more about what Boostly is. And if you haven't, of course, already heard of Boostly, I should say. Stacey was one of the co-authors of the Hospitable Host book, which I'm sure she'll tell us all about as well. We featured that in a feature last month, I believe, with some of the authors. So excited to hear your thoughts, Stacey. Meanwhile, Ryan authored a piece on the future of rental arbitrage, and Phil's company Futurestay, which aims to empower independent property managers to build, grow, and optimize their businesses, raised $11 million Series A funding last March. So let's get straight into today's discussion. And essentially, I want to start with actually what is a rentalpreneur. I'm guessing that probably a lot of people on the session openly use this term a lot throughout their business. For those of us who are less familiar, I'd like to delve a bit more into it. So, of course, it's this portmanteau. That's the posh word of rentalpreneur and entrepreneur, combining these. But Phil, I want to come to you first. You said that this is such a huge segment for Futurestay's business. You're this cloud-based vacation rental management solution. And I think we said that you were used in 150,000 properties in 120 countries. You might be able to give me more up-to-date figures than that. But in your own words, how would you define what a rentalpreneur is?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. So it's much more important than just being the kind of core segment that we focus on at Futurestay. Right now, we have a panel of entrepreneurs, so we know what it takes, the blood, sweat, and tears that it takes to build a business. Everyone here knows that firsthand. A rentalpreneur is someone that takes the risks and the initiative to build a business in the short-term rental space, typically around property ownership or management, so that they can reap the rewards. And because there's such a small barrier, it's easy to threshold to get into the market compared to tech entrepreneurship or many other kinds of small business, you have this unique condition in the market today where people can become rentalpreneurs more easily than they can become entrepreneurs at any point in time in probably the history of the world. So this is like a massive kind of paradigm shift where, we believe at Futurestay, rentalpreneurship is the leading form of entrepreneurship today. And our mission is pretty simple. We want to help reduce that barrier and give as many people as possible the opportunity, the tools, education, et cetera, to become successful rentalpreneurs.
And, Phil, we've featured you in the news. We also did a podcast way back when in the wake of the Black Lives Matter protests as well. So we're familiar with the work that you've done at Futurestay and for the short-term rental industry. But how exactly did you get into this business in the first place?
Yeah, I think like many of us here, I am a rentalpreneur. I have rentals in my family, et cetera. I have rentals right now. But I think more importantly, and this probably speaks to all of us here, we're not just rentalpreneurs. We're not people that just have homes. We are all entrepreneurs, and we know firsthand the impact, the directional changing impact that being an entrepreneur can have on your life and the lives of others. And so being in a position, we have educators here, we have speakers here, we have people that help others raise capital, tech entrepreneurs. We're all here because we know what opportunity exists, and we want to help other people have that opportunity. We're here spreading that message, and I think that's why I'm so excited about today. This is the year that rentalpreneurs are starting to go mainstream, and we're all going to stand on soapboxes. This isn't just, we're not in our kind of basements doing this anymore. We're all on the main stage spreading the message of rentalpreneurship. It's got to be done responsibly. It's got to be done right. It's got to be done with the right place, with the right tools, right education, and the right community support. But it's a life-changing opportunity, and so that's why we're excited about it.
Thank you very much, Phil. I'll turn to Mark next as well. Mark, I'd say you're probably one of the most visible faces now in the short-term rental industry. It's almost quite hard to know almost what you specialize in, because you're doing these podcasts, you're doing the vlogs, you're doing all these trainings as well. But in your own mind, and perhaps you can offer a different perspective to the rest of the panel on this, but how would you yourself define what a rentalpreneur is and has become?
Yeah, no, and I am seeing all of the chat in the panel. I know people are saying, can we get on the chat? I've even had Simon Lehman jump in on my WhatsApp saying hi. So shout out to AJ Atelier. Now he owes me a beer. But basically, what a rentalpreneur is to me is somebody that has started a business in this hospitality game, and they've put the groundwork in, they've built it up. And now, because social media is so prevalent in all of our lives, we're able to document it and showcase what we do. And on the back of that, because social media is so vast and literally you can have anybody follow you from anywhere in the world, people start to engage in your content, show what you're doing, and then ask questions. And on the back of it, this is literally why I started to get into this was, I helped put our family business together, put it on the map, took it online, started to go to local tourism meetings. There was no help in the local area. I created a Facebook group called the Hospitality Community that's still going to the day. And on the back of that, because so many people were asking questions around direct bookings, which is my niche in this whole realm, I started Boostly. That is literally it. And, we've got Ryan who's done the same and obviously built up a huge portfolio. Stacey's done the same. And we've all got our niches in how we help. And people will latch on to others and they will follow that journey. And then in turn, they may, sign up for training programs or services or whatnot. But I define a rentalpreneur being just that. And it's great to see. I feel like they are taking over this industry, whether it's some people like it or not, and everybody who knows what I'm talking about. But in that being said, it is around to stay, and it will be more prevalent than ever. So it is like Phil saying, like Phil described it perfectly. It's amazing to see, and I just so glad to be a part of it.
And would you say like your route into the short-term rental industry, particularly from that direct booking perspective, Is that like a traditional or an unconventional route into the industry? How do you see that?
Yeah, I'm very unconventional because I was born into this industry. Not many people are born into hospitality. They fall into it from something else. But I was just literally from day dot born into a 200-acre farm stay bed and breakfast business. I was just used to having strangers in my house the whole time. And, so much so when I got to like the age when I went to go play at other friends' houses, I was like, where is everybody? Like, there's nobody in the kitchen. What's going on here? And so I was born into it. I grew up into it. I lived it, breathed it. Tried my best to escape it. Tried to do soccer coaching, but then fell back into it many years later and still doing it to the day. So it is massively attributed to the fact that, being born into it is why I'm still doing it and doing what I'm doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mark. I'm interested to get Stacey's perspective about this as well. Stacey, I think you've got a fascinating background, and we'll hear a little bit more about it and some of the businesses that you're founding or you're part of. I was reading, I know you're going to mention the Hospitable Host book, but in preparation for this session, I was seeing, I think there was a quote about how you fell into real estate investment by accident. So in some ways that coincides a bit with what Mark said there, but I've asked Phil and Mark this already. How in your own mind do you view the definition of a rentalpreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, I think about an entrepreneur, and just as Phil and Mark have shared, it's someone who starts a business and operates a business, taking financial risks to make their idea come to life. But I want to go back really quickly to the word idea, because in my mind, an entrepreneur at heart is someone with imagination, someone who sees a gap in either a marketplace or a new opportunity to bring something creative to life. And a lot of people leave their ideas or their imagination as just that. And I think that really is what defines an entrepreneur, is someone who takes the initiative to actually make their idea or ideas come to life. And so in my mind, a rentalpreneur is just someone who is doing that in the short-term rental space. As owners and operators, we can do that within our individual properties, of course. And as an ancillary or side, the folks up on this panel are also taking risks and putting things into place outside of their properties, but doing things for the greater good of the industry. And it's certainly something that I'm especially proud to be a part of. And again, just feel very honored to be surrounded by such great people today. So I hope that helps.
Absolutely. You emphasize there the risks that rentalpreneurs these days are taking, and certainly we can certainly talk a little bit more about that. But does that kind of relate to like your biggest motivations for joining the industry in the first place? How did that sort of work into your route here?
Yeah, mine was maybe a little bit through the back door. I did get into real estate investing by accident. I purchased a property for my son to live in Florida. I live in Ohio in the US. And long story short, that particular school that my son was intending to go to did not have on-campus housing. So we decided, instead of, hey, just renting an apartment and paying out the wazoo for it, let's just buy a property as an investment. So we did just that. And a couple of weeks after we closed, my son said, hey, by the way, I don't think I'm ready to move. And so that's how we were thrust into the world of having our first investment property. Fast forward, I fell into short-term rentals by way of COVID. So COVID happened. My husband and I had started growing our long-term investment portfolio. And here in the US, there were lots of eviction moratoriums popping up. And we were getting ready to purchase another investment property. And we really started thinking about, if we bought another long-term rental, someone could potentially not pay us, and we would have no recourse to ask them to exit our home. And so we thought, hey, let's invest in a short-term rental. At least someone has to pay their bill in order to get the keys. And so that's how I entered into the game of short-term rentals. But I very quickly realized that I had joined an industry that was one of the most magical and amazing industries that I have ever seen. And so it has literally transformed my life.
Oh, what an introduction there to the topic. Thank you very much, Stacey. We'll get back to you very shortly as well. Ryan, despite your accent, you're I think now in Dubai at the moment. So, and your background of being in the UK and building up your business, I think we'd like to hear a bit about that. But yeah, how do you've had the benefit of hearing what the rest of the panel has said. Is their definition of what a rentalpreneur is, does that tally with what you see it as?
Yeah, I think anyone that, takes financial risk on for financial gain is technically an entrepreneur. And obviously we spin it in a different light with property real estate. So I know for me, as my journey's gone on, I initially got into this wanting to, do the old school, build a portfolio, rent it out to tenants and retire with a bit of a pension pot. But when you, as Stacey just said there, have no control over your tenant and they can, not pay and stay. And I've just been through a court case for that as well. And, it's very expensive. And I just got really attracted to this idea of, they have to pay me before they go in. They've got no rights. We can kick them out. And then obviously running that strategy as well is a lot more lucrative, especially in the Northeast where I started, because rents are quite low. But for me, it was just, I actually fell into the whole rent to rent thing by accident. But the more I've done of it now, I actually think you can make a lot more money especially using this industry, given on the sale values of the, our company types. If you build a portfolio up, there's some big boys will buy you out and write you a nice check. So my whole perception of I need to buy assets has actually changed somewhat as I've gone through my journey to, I just need to rent as many properties as I can, get them on good contracts, make cash flow the priority, and then just collect the check at the end of the day. And then with that, you buy assets with that, rather than, I think at the beginning, I probably soaked up too much cash buying assets when I could have probably got more rentals. So I think there's so many different ways you can spin this game. And I think as an entrepreneur in the game, you get to play the different avenues of it when you start to get a bit liquid and you start to get the cash flow coming through. And I think that's the beauty of the industry. As Stacey said, it is a wonderful industry to be involved in.
And like how, from the initial point of starting up your business in England, how have you been able to grow your brand since then, would you say?
Yeah, so I came from kind of a marketing background, so I've always been, a bit like Mark, sort of just on social media and, trying to just get out there as much as I can. I'm a big believer you've got to get attention if you want to get some money. So you've got to just, get out there in all avenues in the right way, obviously. I built the brand, built the portfolio in the UK, in the Northeast to start off with. Then obviously we pushed throughout the whole of the UK as we started to, develop trust with, various landlords and property owners and things like that. So, and then I've always loved Dubai. I used to live here in 2010. And the rent to rent model that was working for me in the UK, when I was over here on holiday, I was like, there's so many empty towers here. There's got to be landlords with voids. And I know what the service fees are on these blocks, and they must just be screaming out for some money. So sure enough, just found some websites, started picking the phone up, ringing a few of these landlords. And it didn't really surprise me that I was having the same conversations as I had when I started in the UK. They've got voids, they've had bad tenants, this, that, and the other. So you just kind of play to those problems, show them how you can solve those problems. And I just started putting the deals together. But then I have pretty much gravitated the whole operation out here now for various reasons, but personal and business. So now the whole company's based here and we continue to grow. And I think the Middle East in itself is, again, come back to that rentalpreneur type word or phrase that we're using. I see the opportunity over here. So as an entrepreneur in the rental space, I know Saudi's going to grow very quickly. I think Qatar, following the World Cup, is going to continue to grow. So I've already got trips planned there this year to then look at options there. And I just think the Middle East as a location is going to grow. So for me, I want to be based here and grow the brand here, and obviously continue the work that we've done in the UK and started in the UK.
You're not looking for new investors for Newcastle already then, Ryan? I mean, Mark, I think like the word I'm hearing a lot here is opportunity. Ryan there particularly just mentioned it, but what why do you see the rentalpreneurship movement now starting to gain so much traction? And why do you see maybe this year being the year that we're starting to see this become a more visible segment, perhaps?
Yeah, well, I feel like to get into this industry, to get started in this industry, it's very simple. You know, even with legislations and things happening in certain areas around the world, it still is relatively simple to get into it. And there is a vast amount of training that is out there on how to get started, how to grow and scale. And like I say, all you got to do is open up YouTube, TikTok, you know, wherever, and there's going to be a lot of information showing you how. And, you know, I feel like there's been a lot of things that have happened in the last few years that have mean people that may have been having a property, putting it as a long-term tenant, have sort of looked at the short-term world and short-term rental world and looked at all the fantastic results people are having and sort of like shifting their mindset towards it. And, you know, it's even though now people may argue that it's very saturated, it still feels like we're just at the beginning of something. And that is why I feel like now more than ever, webinars like this and companies like Phil's and training programs like what Ryan and Stacey put on and franchises, etc., is going to really help more and more people come into this world. And I say I don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
Mm. What are some of the ways that you're actively now doing, now that we're seeing more rentalpreneurs, if this is the formal word of saying these, of calling these hosts? What are some of the ways that you're doing to encourage them to generate more direct bookings or boost their profits or direct bookings?
Yeah, so my niche is direct bookings. I learned very on, and I had a friend that was giving me some advice. He said, listen, whatever you do, get yourself so far down in a niche that there's room for no one else. And, you know, direct bookings has always been something that has been true to my heart. You know, our family business was always, you know, 80% direct with 20% other. And it always amazed me when I went to the local tourism meetings back in 2016 that more hosts weren't tapping into the many tools that were available to sort of achieve that. And one of the main things that I'm doing and trying to do now, going in from 2022, we're putting a couple of books together, and going into 2023 is that education, right? And it's so easy as you come into this world. You watch a couple of YouTube videos and everybody's just calling it their Airbnb. They don't call it their short-term rental, they call it their Airbnb. So what I do is I try and go, right, Airbnb is a marketing platform. You don't call yourself an Airbnb owner. You know, I try and do some funny things to sort of explain that. For example, putting a massive billboard at Times Square, promoting the book and saying, you know, the book that Airbnb don't want you to read and all that sort of cool stuff. But the core message is right from the very start, even at Property One, put these foundations, put this blueprint in place that will mean that as you grow and scale your business, you're not playing catch up or you're not reliant on one platform to solely run your business. There's a thing that I said that sort of got a couple of people's backs up, where I said, if 90% or more of your bookings are coming in from Airbnb, you're not a business owner. You're an employee, and Brian Chesky is your boss. And that is so true, because, you know, you are so reliant on one platform. And that's what I'm trying to do with education, you know, videos, podcasts, books, and all that cool stuff. And yeah, that's massively my goal for 2023.
Thank you, Mark. Stacey, like Mark talks there about Airbnb and some of the, I guess, criticism, rightly or wrongly, that's leveled at OTAs in general, shall we say, is that they've lost that sense of like hospitality or customer service element. I know that's something that some of you on the panel have been vocal about, and maybe we'll touch on as well. But how are you seeing from your angle, how are rentalpreneurs leveraging the customer service and maintaining that hospitality element to generate more income?
Yeah, I think in a couple of different ways. First and foremost, just going back to what Mark just shared, the first thing that people are doing is they're realizing that Airbnb is a platform. It's not their identity. So that is critically important. Secondarily, I don't think that Airbnb has lost their taste for hospitality. What I believe is they are giving leverage and the power to the guests. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with servicing our guests, but it's going to be interesting to see over time how that equals out, because I do think that they run the risk of losing a lot of their hosts if they continue down some of the paths they've taken. As far as leveraging customer service and amenities, I see so many people doing such creative things. And I think the first thing, again, Mark just mentioned, is education. Having people understand that we are operating a business. Let's say we just have one property that we own or that we're renting, and recognizing that we are operating a business and we have to apply the same business best practices that the executives at Airbnb or Vrbo or any McDonald's, any business owner has best practices in order to have their business grow and thrive. And so I believe that by focusing those business best practices into your day-to-day property, it's going to help you. So understanding what our ideal guests need, anticipating those guests' needs, asking our guests what they need. How can I do better? Have a focus on continuous improvement, right? Not staying static, continuously improving. Make data-driven decisions. That is critically important. It's what every leading business does. And as a host of our own properties, we have the ability to do that too. When we do the things that thriving businesses do, the results in the financial rewards just kind of come. So it's kind of like the end result of focusing on servicing the needs of our guests and being the very best rentalpreneur we can be. And the results end up as a result of that work.
And are you thinking about ancillary amenities or services with yourself as a host, but the people tuning in as well today?
Oh yeah. I mean, again, I go back to the word imagination. I see people, I just had a podcast interview yesterday where someone had an adventure wall, right? I also interviewed somebody yesterday that has a pillow menu, in their property. So, hey, you like a soft pillow? You like a firm pillow? You want a memory foam? I got you covered. Things like themed rooms. These are all obviously ways that we can make our property unique, but I think it's really most critically important that we understand our ideal guest. Who is going to be most happy staying in our property, and what do they want and or need? And again, when we focus on servicing our ideal guests with maybe amenities or, in ways that we are communicating with them, that yields the result of our ideal guests are happy. We might be able to increase our daily rates because we've got special amenities. Our ideal guests are referring us to other ideal guests who are likely their friends or family members. So it's really a win-win-win scenario when we focus on, again, that business mindset of anticipating their needs and solving their problems before they even know what they are, from a guest perspective. So
thank you, Stacey. Ryan, your business model is quite different in the sense that it's a rent-to-rent business model, and I'm sure you can expand on exactly what that means. But do you want to sort of respond as well at the same time to maybe some of the points that Stacey's raised there about Airbnb and that, or OTAs in general, and that hospitality element? How do you How do you view that?
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with Airbnb, but I think as Mark said, Airbnb is a great platform at the beginning of your journey because, you know, there's not many businesses you can get into where you only pay when you actually get a customer. You know, if we set up a whatever, sold toothbrushes, we might have to spend money in the chance of trying to get some business back. So it is a good business model in that sense. But I think what happens is people get far too comfortable with just getting bookings from Airbnb, and then they're at the mercy and they have no control over their business. So I actually just put a video up on Instagram before about this, where in 2020, they shut the platform and we couldn't even take bookings. Then they refunded all of our guests that shouldn't have been refunded. Again, just showing that we have no control over that business model. And then again, with this air cover policy that they've brought in, a guest can pretty much stay for free if they know how to play the cards right. And more of them are doing that. And we're the ones that have to pick up the pieces financially more than anything. So it's something that is good at the start, but as you build, you have to be working on your direct booking strategy. And I know, I mean, even myself, I don't think I had a direct booking website for the first year or so. And then obviously I went to Mark and we put one together, and then that was far too late for me. But, you know, if I could go back in time, I would start from day one with a direct booking SEO sort of, you know, link building, blogging type strategy to get those longer term and better bookings through. But as the business has developed, we're about 70% direct bookings now, but that's taken a hell of a lot of hard work to get there. But it's definitely worthwhile for probably the next 5 to 10 years of the business. And I have actually turned Airbnb off for a portion of my properties now and just not even using them all together. I don't mind some of the other platforms because I think you still retain a lot of control. It's not a case of our guest said this, so they're going to give them the money back. They'll come to you and say, we'll mediate, what's your side of the story, you know, and you get at least half a chance of keeping that money. So I think you've got to be 100% if you want a long-term career and business. You know, as Stacey said before, you are a business. You have a marketing department, you've got an accountancy department, you've got, you know, everything around it. You need growth, you need brand marketing. And that is not calling yourself an Airbnb business. You know, that's just promoting them, like, you know, their whole super host bollocks, you know, that's just a marketing tool for them to get the name out more. And, you know, it's just, people have got to stop fueling Airbnb, especially hosts, because the more they do that, the higher their commissions are going to go. You know, the more control you're giving over to Airbnb, and, you know, they're just going to end up dominating to a point where I think they've lost total touch with the hosts. And more I know professional sort of hosts who can come off the platform are coming off the platform, and they're going to lose property, they're going to lose stock, and ultimately they're going to have to pivot somewhere. I mean, without going on too much, I understand why they do it, because they get paid when they attract a guest. They're fighting against Booking.com, they're fighting against TripAdvisor, so they need these air cover policies to win that guest. But those policies are not suiting the hosts, and if they're not careful, they're going to have no stock. So I think they're playing a very dicey game at the minute. And but I think really what we need to take from it as hosts is stop relying on them and work on strategies to get away from them, because the sooner you do that, the more profit you'll make and the more control of your business that you're going to have. And I would say the more sustainable your business is long term. And something that I've done probably for the last 2 years now is really just focus on that strategy, and it's, you know, really starting to pay dividends.
Thank you, Ryan. And we will. I know we've got some more questions coming in, so I will come back to you very shortly as well. Thank you very much for everyone's questions as well. We'll try and get to those all shortly. Phil, coming back to you, I know you've had to be patient there, hearing from our other panelists, but you say, like, you know, the idea of rentalpreneurship is really a core sort of part of your business, the people that you're trying to reach out to. So how are you helping rentalpreneurs build or grow their income?
Yeah, great question. And I mean, the discussion is getting so lively. There's so many important things that were brought up that tie directly back to building income here. Let's start with two of the words that were brought up by by everyone, by Ryan, Stacey, and Mark. So the first was opportunity, and you brought that up, Paul. Opportunity is critical here because I think we need to look at, from a bird's eye view, what is this industry actually shaped like? There's a lot of misconception here that most properties in the industry are managed or owned by large companies. The reality here is we're in a $100+ billion industry, probably the only one in the world where 80% of the supply of the goods that are sold in the short-term rental industry are sold by regular people. People with 1, 2, 3, 4 properties, your neighbor, your aunt, you, right? And 80+% of the consumers in the industry are regular people. They're not business travelers, they're you when you're gonna go somewhere with your family. This is a $100 billion industry that is by the people and for the people. That is a massive, massive opportunity, and there's nothing else like it. It's important to remember that the control, which was the other word, which both Stacey and Ryan brought up, is in the hands of the rentalpreneur, if we can take it, if we can hold it, right? And so let me just be really clear. Like I run a technology platform. So I'm partnered with Airbnb, I'm partnered with Booking.com, I'm partnered with Vrbo. We work with a lot in Google, et cetera. We work with a lot of those companies to actually build the APIs to allow rentalpreneurs, the smallest property managers, to connect to those channels. And back, you go back 4 or 5 years, unless you had 20 properties, you couldn't even connect to those channels using software. So we help pave the way for that to happen. And it's important to note, right? This is, I think, why Futurestay exists. Futurestay exists because the reality is going from 0 to 1, from 0 properties to 1, and even 2 to 3, et cetera. There's such a big change in your life and the things that you need to do and those best practices that Stacey was talking about. It's very different than going from 100 to 101 or even 100 to 110. It's a bigger delta. And so that journey that a rentalpreneur takes at the beginning, when they're first taking those risks and trying to figure out what their goals are, that journey it's more difficult, it's more chaotic, they need more support, and they change more rapidly. So we built Futurestay to help take people on the initial stages of that journey to the point where they can meet their goals. And oftentimes for most rentalpreneurs, their goal is just a handful of properties. That alone, as anyone here can tell you, will change your life. And it gives you a new set of opportunities and control. So the way I look at this, and we talk about income and tying this back to the opportunity and control, is why people are really doing this is some of it's they need to. Some of it is the opportunity to create independence. Some of it is they've fallen into it. There's an interesting study done a couple of months ago by Census-wide, actually in partnership with Airbnb, that showed that 77% of homeowners with a mortgage were looking for additional income streams to cover the rising costs of their mortgage, 77%. And about half of them, 47%, were open to putting their home on a short-term rental platform. That's almost half of people with mortgages, right? That's insane. We're talking about literally hundreds of millions of people around the world that are considering becoming rentalpreneurs. Will everyone be able to do it? Of course not. But with the right education, the right tools, and the right people like here to support, help them on that journey, that's exactly what we need for rentalpreneurs, to help them take that right step at the right time. When you're first starting out, a direct booking website is challenging. Is it the right thing to do once you get your first property up and you maybe understand how to get a couple of reviews? It's the right thing to do, right? That's what we always recommend, starting first with that home base. You start with the home base of the direct booking website. You put up your listing channels to get the kind of the wheels turning in the business. And then as you get better at it, you can start weaning off of the channels and building more independence for yourself. And you turn the channels on when it's the right time, but that's not going to be the high value, high margin bookings for you. Direct bookings are always going to be most powerful. So there's a journey, and that journey is how you build the income. And
talking of challenges or opportunities, how do you assess like the capital landscape as well? Like, is there more or less access to capital now? I mean, talking of like what we're seeing, we're covering funding rounds even at the start of this year that are between that intersection of tech and real estate. But is that something you see more generally? Yeah, I mean, I think as it pertains to us, the rentalpreneurs here that are running businesses, I think that there's a lot of dry powder on the sidelines right now in both the real estate segment as well as tech segment. I think most interestingly and importantly for rentalpreneurs, the mortgage rates are up across the board right now.
which is challenging if you're trying to, purchase your first home to be a rentalpreneur. The reality is there's so much shadow inventory, homes that are not being used at all. And the rent to rent model, like Ryan is talking about, is a great way to start your first short-term rental and become a rentalpreneur. The other reality is you may already have a property that you're trying to figure out how to cover the mortgage on, that 47% that we talked about. So access to capital isn't the first thing on the minds, I think, of most rentalpreneurs, especially those that are just getting their feet wet in the business. A lot of them have homes or have access to homes that they can rent out. So it's really about putting the right tools and the right guidance and education in the right places. And that's what we're working on here at Futurestay, expanding our education and helping people take the first steps of that journey, and a lot of other great educators here on the panel as well.
Thank you, Phil. Let's sort of just go to some of the comments in the chat. We've got Kieran Craig Jones saying, "I believe all hosts should join an association such as STRz here in the UK, Astra, I think in Australia, in America, VRMA in America as well, rather than people just sign up to courses." If anyone wants to comment on that, please do. Jody, looking at all the hospitable hosts, Stacey, Mark and Ryan, we will come to that very shortly. Interesting comment here from Patrick Orr, and it says, "Where is the best place to learn how to be a rentalpreneur?" Stacey, I'm going to come to you first on this one, because as we mentioned, you're one of the co-authors of Hospitable Hosts. I think you've got the book actually with you to promote anyway. At the time of the book publication as well, you said that you'd grown your portfolio from 2 to 8 properties as well. So for people perhaps like Patrick or other people on this session as well, how can people gain that knowledge? Where are the resources for them to look if they're entering this journey?
Yeah, a couple of different ways come to mind. I mean, obviously, there are educators in the space with defined programs that help guide you. I know I have one. I know Mark, Luke, there are loads of people that can help provide, I would say, step-by-step information on how to launch and grow your short-term rental business. But I also just want to point out the power of community. And, this is something that I was immediately drawn to when I entered into the short-term rental space. I personally have a community of, more than 34,000 women from all around the world who eat, sleep, breathe, and talk short-term rentals every day. And you might go, wait a minute, is there really that much to talk about? And I say yes. But just learning, networking with other people, having conversations to understand how they approach different things, reading through Facebook, groups, all the questions that are posed, reading books like Hospitable Hosts and others who you can glean really valuable information just by hearing someone else's story. So I think, being a part of a greater community is also very impactful. I think also being willing to pay it forward with your own knowledge is tremendously rewarding. And seeing that, even when you're just starting out, with 0 to 8 properties. Now I have 26 in my portfolio. Okay. Well, I know different things today than I knew back when that book was published. Right. And so being willing to share your knowledge with others and help others along their journey, not only is a win-win, but it really helps cement in you confidence and having the ability to know that you're able to make an impact on someone else's life. I can't say enough great things about this industry and how collaborative everyone is. And we don't have competitors in this space. I believe we have collaborators in this space. And when we lean into that, your business can really, really take off. I don't know if that really answered your question, but I feel like I'm on a soapbox, so I'm just going for it.
No, we'll take it whatever.
Okay.
your and I do have to move on to the other speakers as well. Unfortunately, we haven't got a whole lot of time, but I really recommend for anyone here reading Stacey's section. I think you've got some great advice there about the challenges when building portfolios, and also some of the maybe challenges facing female investors as well. So by all means, connect with Stacey afterwards. We've got your details in the chat there, so we might still have time to come back to you for a question. But thank you very much, Stacey. Ryan, as well, let's go back to the rent-to-rent model that you've used as well. You know, what makes that more effective than buying assets in the short and long term? And you know, you've been able to scale your portfolio as well using that model.
Yeah, I mean, I think speed's probably the right word to use. I think the difference between buying assets and obviously renting and using it. I mean, I think obviously if you had an unlimited pot of money, you'd buy the assets because mortgages would be cheaper than rents, and you know you'd make more profit. But it's not as easy to do that. And also, I mean, in the UK, it takes far too long now to actually buy a house. You know, you used to be able to do it a lot quicker. But so I just think it depends on the type of investor you are. Obviously, I am very impatient. I've got very big targets and I know what I want to achieve. So I go quick. Whereas some people might just want to build this alongside another job. They might not want to be massive. They might just want a little bit of extra income. So I think you've got to first and foremost decide where you are in that. Then obviously it comes down to how much money you've got to invest. So, but for me now, knowing what I know, I would put, I'd probably put it all into rent to rent, in all honesty, and build up the cash flow, because ultimately I think cash is king, and that's what we live life for, is cash flow. Building assets is great, but you can't really spend assets, or you can't reinvest assets. You know, you can technically in a way, but not easily and quickly. Whereas each and every month, if you're building that cash flow pot up, you can then go again, or you can go on holiday, you can treat yourself, you can do what you want with that cash. So for me, I think you should rent to rent till you've got enough liquidity every single month coming in that you're comfortable with. And then what I've done is I've reinvested, obviously, the money I made from rent to rent and built, you know, a 7-figure property portfolio that I own as well. And then that cash also comes back in, and we just keep turning it through. So, but I think, as I mentioned earlier, and I think one thing that a lot of people don't understand when they're getting into this industry is the value of our businesses. Whether you've got 8 properties, whether you've got 20, whether you've got 200, 300 or thousands, every single one of those properties, if the contracts are right and they're run profitably, are sellable as an asset to, you know, bigger companies. I try and buy smaller businesses. It's easier for me to buy a business with 25 units than it is trying to singly get 25 different units. There's bigger boys than us with tens of thousands of units who want to buy 1,000 units or 1,500, and they pay good money. So for me now, it's very much just rent, move quickly, build the volume. Cash flow's king. Looking at the end goal is that's when I'll get the check. And then my ultimate goal is to, I will then buy blocks with that money and give them to somebody else to manage, because I really can't be asked that. But then still get the cash flow from that money, you know, so it's just using it in a different way. So build it to get the money, then have sort of more of a passive property investment strategy for the latter half of my life career from the money that I built from the rent to rent model.
Thank you, Ryan. Phil, you've spent, I think you said, like, it's almost a decade that you've been supporting this movement, working, building awareness for the segment, and it's almost culminating in this particular session. But you know, for people who are just coming into the rentalpreneurship segment, what would be your advice to people, and using your own expertise and experience from how the landscape's evolved?
Yeah, great question. And I think just, you know, kind of listening to Stacey's story, Ryan's story, and Mark's stories, like their personal background, mine as well, right? You can see that there's so many pathways into rentalpreneurship, and it's not a one-size-fits-all model for you. It depends on what your goals are. It depends on how much capital you have access to, whether or not you plan on keeping another job, how long you want to do it for, if you're trying to build cash flow or wealth. And So number one, we've worked with tens of thousands of rentalpreneurs over the years, and learned so many lessons, right? Customer feedback, working in the trenches with them, seeing them succeed, listening to the pain points, et cetera, right? Just all of that. And then experiencing the same thing with our own properties and our own lives. I think the first thing that any rentalpreneur should do is find the right community and the right support. There's zero reason to do this alone. Just don't go it alone, right? And yes, you can go list on an online travel agent, a listing channel like Booking.com or Airbnb and Vrbo. That's probably not the first thing you should do. The first thing you should do is get around some like-minded individuals. One thing that we learned at Futurestay was when we built a massive software platform, and we got to the stage where we are now with thousands of host and rentalpreneurs signing up a month. We realized that there is not enough technology in the world to help someone learn how to run a business. You have to have education and support and community as a core part of what you bring to the market. So one of the big changes and updates that you'll see this year, and I'm sure we'll all see more about this, I'll have to collaborate with you guys on this as well, is we're really bringing education and community to the forefront. We've always had a community at Futurestay. We've always had some education, but it's always kind of been off to the side. It hasn't been our core focus. And so being able to offer those really key pillars, like that journey that goes along with you, from figuring out which model works for you. Is it the rent to rent model? Is it the, hey, I already have a property model, I was born into this? Or is it oops, I made a mistake and bought a property. What do I do with it, right? Great aunt's home just got left to me. What do I do with that? These are all common ways that people get into the industry. What is the right way forward? How do you set your goals? And then where do you go from there? We have some kind of early access to the community. Happy to make that available to your audience, obviously, Paul, and we'll talk about that. But really, it's get involved with the people that you see here. Get involved with other people, other Facebook groups, other groups on TikTok, on Instagram, and just start listening and start learning. It's not just about creating an Airbnb listing or Vrbo listing or a Booking.com listing. Those are just marketing channels, which are going to be great and help you grow. But that is not your business. Your business is your business. So sit with, network with, break bread with, and learn from people that have done it before and that are doing it now.
Thank you, Phil. I'll give Mark the last word, because I know you're dying to explain some more things as well. But you've been, again, a co-author of Hospitable Host. You've launched a book direct playbook as well. There's so much on the training tools. Could you just explain a little bit more about these, and ultimately why you think these educational training tools are so important for our audience? Yeah.
So Phil mentioned earlier that this is a massive industry, and there's a ton of resources and things going on. But the problem is that the education for hosts was non-existent. And what do I mean by that is that too many vendors in this industry, and definitely not Futurestay, but too many vendors were focusing on the host who had more than 20 plus properties for too long. And the reason why is obvious, because if they've got more properties, they can make more money, profit and loss and all that sort of stuff. So when hosts are coming into this game, or if they've been in this game for a while, and 80% plus of this industry is sat in that 1 to 20 mark, there's nothing there. And for years, there was nothing properly coming out of places like Verma and these other organizations that are out there. And anything that was being said was out of date, because this game is so rapid with social media and all of the things that this keeps constantly evolving. And why is there education? Why is this rise of entrepreneurs? Why is there more influencers coming into this space? Well, the main thing is that somebody will start a business and do well. And they'll start to document it and create content on social media, maybe not to, in the future, try and sell a course, but they want to document it to attract investors or maybe attract landlords. So they can, they document the process, show that they're the real deal. So then somebody will reach out to them in the DMs and they'll say, oh, hey, I've got something for you. But on the back of that, something really cool happens, which Stacey keeps alluding to, which is community. This is why you go onto YouTube, you go onto TikTok, you go on to, Clubhouse was a massive thing for this. You see more and more people giving and sharing their advice, and then people are latching onto it. And they were latching onto certain people because, there's many of us on this panel, and there's so many more if you jump into Instagram and whatnot. And your vibe attracts your tribe. And you know, whatever your why is for coming and doing this and becoming an entrepreneur, whether it's, you know, it's the money, it's the flashy Lamborghinis, if it's more time with your family, whatever that may be, you attach onto different people and you start following their journey in the community, and you start then, once you build the community, then you build the business, whatever that business looks like, whether it is franchises, whether it's training courses, books, podcasts, whatever that may be. And now we've gone like full circle. So you do now see more vendors paying a lot more of attention to these 1 to 20 property hosts, which is great for me, which is fantastic. That's literally where I've sat my whole career, is sat in this realm. And this is why, you know, we do websites that are cost effective for anybody, whether you're on property 1 or property 20. And now I see big organizations doing it as well. So now Verma have amended the rules and they can have more people from lower property levels coming to the conferences. I was speaking to somebody who's in the audience, Kieran Craig Jones, today, who's over in Australia, and Astra, and now she's part of the board of directors, and her goal is to really focus on the small rentalpreneurs, which is fantastic. And we're getting to a point now where there is a lot of information at all levels. You know, Star and Richard Vorton's jumped in with said Pask and stuff. And so it's now hosts have got all the education that they need. There's communities out there. And like, this is something that I built from day one of Boostly. I built the community first with the hospitality community, and then the business just naturally flowed from it. And I personally, the reason why we started doing training and did a course was because people were in my inbox every single day. I was like looking at my wife, I was like, this is just bananas. I'm like, I'm answering messages more than I'm doing anything else in our hospitality business. And so put it all onto a training course and just literally sent people there. And as we've expanded and we've grown, we've bought in websites, is because people were asking for it. And there was no decent solutions out there. And now with the book, it was, you know, I've got 10 years worth of experience. If I can document that and put it into 50,000 words, and just when somebody sends me a question, I can just say, boom, it's there, 99p. Go nuts. If you want to get the Audible, go crazy. If you want to get the print, go for it. And we did the playbook, and then we did the blueprint at the tail end of last year. And obviously being part of Hospitable Hosts, and we've got Hospitable Host 2023. I've got Jodie Sterling literally in the WhatsApp of me now, and I've said, literally, your next book needs to be The Rise of the Rentalpreneur. And, you know, it's an exciting time. Ryan's got a new book out, and I feel like there's so many more content that is coming, whether it's audio, whether it's written form, whether it's meetups, whether it's events, whatever you may be. You don't have to go this alone. That's the main thing, that what I'm saying. When I first got into this business back in 2011, when I came back in full time, when I failed my dreams as a soccer player in America and I came back into the business full time, there was days when I was literally sat at my computer and I was just thinking, there's nothing here. Like, I literally, when it came to pricing, we're talking about Price Labs, you know, the sponsors of this, dynamic pricing is a fantastic tool. I was literally sat at days looking at our PMS, just scratching like, what the hell do we do? So we did literally our pricing strategy, which is bananas. We used to put the price up £1 every year, set for the rest of the year. It was ridiculous. We left so much money on the table, but there was nothing out there to help. And now there is. And so we've got loads of people in the audience, or loads of people watch back, and you may be thinking, well, who do I follow? Where do I start? You know, just go and find somebody. Follow Ryan, follow Stacey, follow me, follow Phil, follow whoever. Go find somebody, latch onto it. But the most important thing is don't get, you know, wrapped up in it all. Don't watch tons and tons and tons of content and never act. You know, don't get that analysis paralysis, because you see this so much where people like start following like Ryan's videos, and a year later they're still sat there going, oh yeah, I should really do something about this. You know, just watch it, take on board 10% and start going, take action, which is like my main takeaway from this.
Thank you very much, Mark. And we've had so many questions coming through. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but we will make sure that every one, Richard, Abdul, Cesar, Sabayan, all of those questions that come in, and we've still got a little bit of time at the end as well, if our speakers want to jump in and comment in the chat, or if you want to contact them afterwards, as their emails are at the top. Thank you very much for everyone's questions. Big thank you to all of our contributors today, to Mark, to Stacey, to Ryan, and to Phil. We've just got a couple of questions to run through. We have gone over slightly, but I think it's an important conversation that we had to have there. So just got a couple of slides to run through just firstly. So we're back for our next short-term rentals webinar on breaking down barriers in the short-term rental sector on Tuesday, the 7th of February. It's at 4 p.m. GMT, the same time as today. The sign-up link is in the chat for you now. And tickets are still available for our Recharge event in Lisbon in Portugal next week, as we bring together urban innovators at the cutting edge of Hospitality, Real Estate and Living. It takes place on the 23rd and 24th of January, and hope you can join us there. There's quite a strong short-term rental contingent on some of the panels we've got as well. I'll be leading a couple of workshops as well. So hopefully at least some of you can, on today's session, can join us there. You can still get your tickets. For opportunities to work with us, please do contact my colleague Steph. She's just joined. We're delighted to have her as our new VP of Sales at IHM. So I'm sure you'll all welcome her to the team, and her details are in the chat. Delighted to have you on board, Steph. And also our colleague, our Global Partnerships Manager, Katie, as well. So please do reach out to them for any opportunities to collaborate with us. Big thank you again to Price Labs for sponsoring our webinars. The session will just stay open for another 2 minutes in case, and there is a lot of information in the chat, contact details and questions to work through if you want to jot down anything there. Do contact us via our various channels you can see on the screen there. Thank you once again to all of our fantastic speakers, great insights today, great debates, and everyone who tuned in today, big thank you. We'll see you all again very soon. Thank you very much, everyone.